part of that was a lot of concern about death, fear of
Yeah.
death,
Yes.
and I can't help but notice, that your career, in fact, a big part of what's contained in the idea of being an existential psychologist or psychotherapist is death is front and center, and kind of an
Yes.
insistence that it be front and center. So
Yes.
I'm sure you've reflected on that. It seems like there's a way in which it's come full circle.
There's no question about it. And I'm sure it also drove me to write a lot and to be as creative or productive as I could be, partly because I'm realizing the fragility of life. Uh, but yeah, existentialism was a really compatible field for me when I discovered Maurice Friedman's The Worlds of Existentialism, I think in high school,
Mm,
which contains a lot of little writings, wonderful writings from different theorists, including a mentor who we share, Rollo May and eventually James Bugental. Uh, but I would say it's not just death in the conventional sense of physical ending. It's more what Becker describes in Denial of Death, the complex symbol of death. It's a complex symbol because it's not just about a physical finality. I see it more and more as the sense of groundlessness and helplessness that is part of the human condition that I, as well as others, sometimes was exposed to at a much too early age.
yeah, yeah.
And so it was that ripping open to this helplessness and groundlessness that is really us in so many ways, much too quickly and intensely. But on the other side of that, and because I got that pivotal help from the analyst and later an existential analyst I worked with in graduate school, who's also mentioned very much in the book, I was able to see that groundlessness and helplessness as also new possibilities. Because it's like all bets are off, right? When
Uh-huh.
you're in that free fall,
Yeah.
in that suspense, you can also realize, well, there's a great deal of freedom there or potential to explore and some very interesting things about that, and maybe even amazing things about,
Well, in a sense, what have
yeah,
you got to
yeah.
lose, right? What have
That's
you
that's
got
a
to
way of putting
lose? You might as well do the brave
it. That
thing.
that's a way of putting it, but also that you potentially have a great deal to lose if you don't tap in to it.
Uh-huh.
Also,
Yeah.
if you don't seize the moment now to take that risk,
Uh-huh.
whether it's with your therapist, or in a close relationship. I mean, certainly my mother and I worked through an awful lot, and my father as well over time. Uh, but it's a potential opening as well as a closing, if one can stay present, more fully present to the turmoil, to the disruption, because it's breaking out of the usual box that we live in, right? I mean, so
Yeah.
quickly, as soon as we're born, we're covered over often with rules and regulations and all kinds of cultural things to restrict our capacity to see some of these deeper anxieties, like our fragility, possibility of death, that sense of groundlessness. So, yeah, to break out of that can enable one to be more creative, to be maybe more sensitive about what's going on for oneself and others. I mean, I hope and I feel that these qualities did manifest for me eventually. It took a long time
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and some really scary moments.
You mentioned awe earlier, and there's a section in the book where you titled "From Terror to Awe," and that sounds
Yes.
like quite a quite a leap. So talk to us
Well,
about how you get from terror to awe, and what are the skills that you can develop in terms of uh, learning to be awestruck.
well, the conventional definition of awe is a combination of dread, veneration, and wonder. So, I mean, awe is one of the few transcendental terms in my knowledge that directly faces the paradoxes of the human situation. You know, our most our deepest dreads, as well as our most dazzling desires, in a sense, our smallness, you know, our tininess before the vastness of creation, and our capacity to venture out into it, to create, to participate in something much greater than ourselves.